You're walking through your neighborhood one day, and one of your immediate neighbors' houses has smoke billowing outside. How many of you, at some risk to yourself, would help get the inhabitants out of that house? Please raise your hands. Very good. Most of you. On another day, you are walking home, no house is on fire this time, and you see one of your immediate neighbors outside, but you've never met them before. How many of you would invite them over for a 2-hour get-to-know-you coffee? Please raise your hands. Only a couple of hands go up. Most of us would rather risk our own lives than spend quality time with another human being. We have forgotten how to be with one another. There's a number of different ways we can experience our humanity. Our humanity is incredibly present when we actually have that great buzz, that connection of being with another human being. We also have our humanity when we feel a sense of purpose. We're actually contributing to humanity. You could be teaching kids, saving lives, teaching art, or any other job, as long as you feel you're contributing to society. You also could be risking your life and saving someone's life. All of those times are when we experience our humanity. But because of our modern lives, the times and the frequency that we actually feel that way is becoming incredibly infrequent. Most of us spend our lives, first of all, locked in our cars. And I consider cars to be nothing more than a mobile isolation chamber. Then we go to our offices and we're fixated into our computers in these little cubicles isolated from other people. And then oftentimes we go back to bars or restaurants. We're not even connecting with people next to us because we're completely consumed by our technology and our phones. We are on this perpetual rat wheel. Most of us are working to literally afford living so we can work more. I would argue to you that our prosperity is literally bankrupting our humanity. There are a number of different surveys out these days that are actually tracking tracking loneliness, both subjective and objective. One of my favorite surveys tracked the average number of confidants that the average American had. In 1985, the average American reported having 3 confidants. Now, a confidant is more than a friend. A friend is someone who you see casually. A confidant is someone you can actually confide in. You actually see on a regular basis. You share intimate details. You could actually call on for help. In 1983, the average American had 3. In 2004, the average American had 2. And in 2015, the average was just a little less than 1. With over half of all surveyed reporting they had no one they could confide upon. This lack of confidence, this loneliness is literally killing us. Most of you have probably heard about a well-publicized survey that came out in 2010 that showed that loneliness was one of the biggest killers in America today. Worse than obesity, worse than diet, worse than air pollution, worse than drugs, worse than overdrinking. Loneliness is literally killing us. But how did we get this way? How did we become one of the wealthiest and yet most humanely bankrupt countries in the world? How did we get here? Well, let me take a step back. I graduated from college decades ago in 1992 from the University of California, Irvine, with a degree in political science. Well, quick story. My mother desperately wanted me to become a politician. I just didn't have the ambition or sex drive for politics. So, with a degree in political science, you only really have a couple of choices. You can go to law school, but I didn't have the discipline for law school. You can go into sales, or you can go into food services. But California was in recession in 1992, so I couldn't get a job in food services, being a bartender or a waiter. So I got a job working for the biggest motivational speaker in the world. The motivation industry then, as it is now, is still pitching the Prosperity Doctrine. The Prosperity Doctrine goes something like this. Come take my course. Learn from me. You'll have multiple houses, flashy cars, a beautiful spouse, and what is called mailbox money. Do you know what mailbox money is? You go to your mailbox, open it up, and there's checks inside. You will live this lifestyle all while working by your side of your pool with a laptop and on your cell phone. Every single one of these big motivational speakers had a rags to riches story. This is so endemic in our society today. However, it didn't start with the big motivational speakers of the last 20 years or so. It probably started over 120 years ago with a little speech called Acres of Diamonds. Russell Conwell was a major in the Civil War and then became a Baptist minister. Then he created this speech called Acres of Diamonds, which he delivered over 6,000 times, largely in churches across the Northeast and even in Europe. And it told the story of a very, very poor African farmer who heard stories of other people finding riches with diamond mines. So this farmer decided to sell his little plot of land and go in search, of course, to find acres of diamonds. He, of course, did not. He died poor and obscurely. However, the farmer who bought his farm was tilling the fields one day and found these little teeny clumps. And in those clumps were actually diamonds. That poor farmer's farm actually became one of the richest diamond mines in all of Africa. And the story was quite simple. It instilled a lot of values into our evolving culture back in the early 1900s. First of all, it basically said that opportunity was right beneath your very feet. Secondly, it said it's okay to be wealthy. Up until about that time, people believed you had to be pious, to be poor in order to be pious. And third, it also instilled in people it was okay to make profit on what you sell. Believe it or not, that was a foreign concept back in the early 1900s. But it didn't stop there. Over the last 100 years, there have been tons of books and even board games that further instilled this value. You've played Monopoly, haven't you? Many of you experience exactly what I've experienced, which is there is nothing better playing with your brothers and sisters, driving them to bankruptcy until they throw the board up in the air after you won the whole entire game. However, did you know that game was actually created by a socialist who wanted to share the evils of capitalism, a winner-take-all society? It did exactly the opposite for little American children. We saw that game, saw our brothers and sisters crying, and thought, this is exactly what I want. Yes. I think that with the society and the way that we live today will look incredibly bizarre to us in the years to come. This picture was taken in the 1980s of a 5-year-old's birthday party. And through the lens of time, we see how incredibly bizarre this value system was. Now, the way I look at morality is like this. Morality is whatever is maximizing human well-being. There are at least 3 things that are happening in this photo, which I would argue are not in the best health and interest of the child or the people who are there. The first one is the lit cigarette 6 inches from the child's face while he's sitting over an ashtray. The second one is the rampant consumption of alcohol at a child's birthday party. And the third terrible, immoral thing is the consumption of Miller Lite. Oh. And that photo to us is completely and totally bizarre. And as we look at that as being strange, I think we will look back at the way we are living now with an equal amount of incredulity. We'll look at it going, how could we have actually lived that way? Here are some of the things that we do that separate us from one another. First of all, it's our houses. Our houses have turned into miniature fortresses which wall the world out. We have these huge block-like structures, these garages, the front doors are completely and totally unwelcoming, and then curtains that shroud down. Most people, when buying a house, yes, they want something that's attractive. Yes, they want something that's functional, but also it's high on people's list as far as what they want in a house is something that's safe and also private to keep the world out. All of the entertainment spaces that we enjoy in our homes these days are all at the back of the house. We have large screen TVs, plush couches that all face the backyard. That's where the only entertainment takes place, and it's not welcoming to outsiders. 40 years ago when I was a kid, someone knocked on the door. It was, great, we've got company, let him in. Today, I'm afraid to knock on my neighbor's door because the idea is I don't want to bother them. That is the culture that we're in. The second thing that is completely and totally isolating is our cars. These things today are complete and total isolation containment systems for us. I don't know if you notice it because it's become so natural for us. But we in general don't feel good when getting out of the car. Look at people the next time you're at the supermarket and they're walking out of their cars. They have the 1,000-yard stare. They're looking down, completely disconnected to anybody who's happening around them. It's a very anxious, aggressive, competitive state we're in when we're in our cars, and it takes a long time for us to get out of it. And the third thing that's isolating us is our technology. We're getting lost into our technology. Technology is at its very best when it facilitates face-to-face human interaction. It's at its worst when it keeps you separated from the person sitting right next to you. I'm going to urge you to pursue the fulfillment doctrine. The fulfillment doctrine actually is a choice in our society. Here are the three things I'm going to recommend that you do. Number one, you've got to find your purpose. Your purpose is the intersection of the following three things. First of all, it is your passion. What do you really enjoy doing? Number two, it's your skill sets. What are you good at? And number three, it is what serves humanity. I've been to enough motivational events, and I'm here to tell you that the rah-rah hype only lasts a little bit of time. If you are looking for lasting, meaningful life, find your purpose. I got a couple little insights for you. People who live purpose don't kill other people. They're not shooting up houses of worship. They're not committing suicide. They aren't out there trying to prove themselves to the world. They already have it for themselves. Second thing I recommend you do is you got to find your tribe. Yes, I realize that being in a community today actually requires a choice. It's a date, a time, a destination. You have to get in your car and drive somewhere on a regular basis. People who are regularly in community spend upwards of 10 hours a week in community. But for most of us, when we see you again twice in 1 week, it's a little unusual. That is definitely a sign of isolation anxiety. And the third thing you've absolutely got to do is you've got to lift your spirit. And by that, I mean become wholehearted. Most of us have been completely and totally enculturated into the big lie in our society. The big lie is as following. You are only worthy if you behave, perform, or achieve. It's a conditional statement. If, then. You were told many of you were told from an early age, if you behave, then you were worthy of love and acceptance. If you perform, if you do well in school, then you are worthy of love and acceptance. If you achieve, you have the right house and the right car, then and only then are you worthy of love and acceptance. I'm here to tell you it's a huge lie. I want to instill a new one in your head, and it goes like this. You are unconditionally worthy of love and acceptance, period. You have nothing to prove to anyone. You are inherently worthy of love and acceptance. Let me ask you a question. How many of you in this audience are confident that humanity and the planet will be better off than it is today? Please raise your hand. Okay. I got one or two optimistic souls. The rest of us, myself included, I am incredibly scared. So a lot of speakers have come up here today, and they've shared some good ideas with you, and I hope you act upon them. Other speakers have come up here today, and they've actually asked you to take action. I'm not going to do either one of those. I'm going to tell you, you need to take action now. You got to find your purpose, you got to find your tribe, and you got to become wholehearted. Our planet does not have time anymore. Thank you.
Thrive Union is a real-world community and life school dedicated to human well-being. Our regular events include parties, game nights, supper clubs, hikes, and Thrive meetings to build deep levels of intimacy, empower us to grow, and improve our world. Our life school provides educational videos, articles, conferences, and educational courses. Visit our website at thriveunion.org to learn more.